Socrates is best known as the father of Western philosophy. He studied politics and morality, and although much of Socrates' contributions are to the field of ethics, there's also a great deal of his input related to the field of logic and epistemology. Doing research on Socrates has always been a bit of a challenge. This is known as the Socratic problem. He didn't write anything down. In fact, some scholars even doubt his existence. However, the information available is attributable to his students. One of them was Plato, who eventually went on to teach Aristotle and his other associates. Plato published a series of dialogues in which he captures conversations that Socrates had between his students, politicians, and townspeople. In one of Plato's most famous works, the Symposium, Socrates and his interlocutors discussed the nature of love. He pictured love as the desire and spirit of seeking something. He then concludes that his relentless pursuit of ideas makes him a lover of knowledge, which literally means philosopher. However, he never actually used that word. And you might ask, why wouldn't Socrates use philosopher in the first place? Well, for us, it seems pretty obvious, but you have to consider that this wasn't common knowledge at that time, and someone had to come up with the principle first. Pythagoras, on the other hand, was the first to call himself a philosopher. Anyway, Socrates had lots of ideas and wisdom, but ironically, he never claimed to know anything. In fact, he said, quote, "True knowledge exists in knowing that you know nothing." End quote. He begins his mission to end society's biggest problem, the uproot of ignorance. He held that knowledge comes from asking questions, so he basically went around the city pressing people on their beliefs, ultimately exposing that they knew nothing. In other words, he encouraged Athenians to create hypotheses which could afterwards be eliminated in order to move away from falsehood. This process of gradual questioning is more commonly known as the Socratic method. These ideas became a great contribution to the academic world. Its influence led to the scientific method, which is similarly based on challenging hypotheses in an attempt to question their validity. But remember, there's an important difference between these two. The Socratic method always aims to ignorance as the ultimate response to every question, whereas in the scientific method, there is an intention of finding reasonable answers and developing knowledge. Another important aspect of Socrates' life was his hatred of democracy. To put this in a wider context, ancient Athens was a civilization that gave rise to democracy. It seemed as if democracy and philosophy were the most striking discoveries, but at the same time the most controversial. In Book 6 of the Republic, Plato describes Socrates falling into conversation with Adeimantus. He was trying to get him to see the flaws of democracy by comparing society to a ship. If you were heading out on a journey by sea, asked Socrates, who would you ideally want deciding who was in charge of the vessel? Just anyone? Or people educated in seafaring? The educated ones, of course, said Adeimantus. So why then, responded Socrates, do we keep thinking that anyone should be fit to judge who should be the ruler of a country? Socrates' point is that voting is a skill, not a random intuition. It needs to be taught. He believed that an individual could affect society in general by their decisions. The question is, what do we do? He definitely didn't think that letting anyone have a vote was the answer. He thought that letting people vote without an education was as irresponsible as putting them in charge of a ship sailing through a storm. He never intended to end democracy, though. Instead, he stood up for an intellectual democracy. The only ones who earned the right to vote were those who knew how to think rationally. So, what did we learn from Socrates? He revealed to us the pathway to knowledge, questioning everything, love, justice, morality. He even managed to challenge democracy's prospects and people's ways of thinking. And all thanks to a man who claimed not to know anything. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, follow and see you next time.